am so honored to speak with you today. As a big fan of ACE and the work that they do, I always look forward to this lunch and seeing so many amazing women in one room in Colorado. Well, kids and education are my passion, but one of my guilty pleasures is watching Juliana Rancic on the red carpet with E, so it's great fun to follow her from last year, too. She did a great job last year, and to share the same stage. But just like Juliana and Bobby Brown before her, I have been truly blessed to live the American dream. Our stories could be anybody's story, living in a country where dreams come true, where opportunity is everything. I've loved every minute of being an entrepreneur, of building businesses, creating jobs, and giving back. But along with opportunity and before dreams came true, for each of us there was love, loss, tragedy, love again, hope, hard work, and more hard work, right? It's everybody's story. My family didn't have a lot of money growing up, but I got a lot of love, encouragement, and inspiration. I also got a great education because my folks were willing to move us for one. I got a scholarship to go to college. I got a shot to start a business doing what I love because I was lucky to meet great people who believed in me. This isn't just my story, though. It can be every child's story when parents in a community stand for their success, just as you are today by being here. So many kids today are facing huge challenges. Many won't get those same shots that I did or that you did. That has to change. It's why we're here. It's why I love the work that ACE is doing. And sorry I have to use notes, you guys. If you have 4 kids and 2 twins that are 7 and they wake you up at 5 in the morning, you kind of have to have a backup plan, right? So bear with me. I believe that education is the key to keeping the American dream alive. But I am very worried. Today, that dream is out of reach for so many children. Right now, our public schools leave millions of young people behind, especially those in poverty. And this isn't for lack of funding. Our government spending per student has more than doubled since 1970. Yet math and reading scores for 17-year-olds haven't budged in 4 decades. The achievement gap between poor kids and rich kids continues to grow. You can see it in Denver between Commerce City, the schools there, and the schools in Greenwood Village. We have 2 education systems in this country, one for the haves and another for the have-nots. And groups like ACE are doing incredible work to bridge those gaps. America became the country we know today when we moved beyond private school just for the privileged. The rise of public education was the great equalizer. You didn't need to be born into the right family at the right place at the right time. You just needed to work hard and take advantage of the opportunity in front of you. But I'm not sure that's true anymore. When I think back on my own journey, it starts with a drive to Colorado. I'm pointing to my parents who are in the audience. In 1978, when my folks moved us from Southern California to the small town of Monument, Colorado. It was a turning point, as they say. I lay in the back of our baby blue Pinto station wagon. You guys remember those? And I stared out at the mountains along I-70 in Glenwood Canyon. And I didn't appreciate the stunning beauty because, honestly, my heart hurt. I couldn't imagine my life without my beloved grandparents, my cousins, the beach, my friends in the neighborhood, and In-N-Out Burger, of course. At age 12, I was young enough to act like a spoiled little stinker about the decision, but I don't think I spoke to my folks the whole ride out, probably. I was pouting. But I also was old enough to know that my young parents had made a life-changing gamble to give us a better life. My dad was a reserve police officer in California and saw one too many examples of crime and society going astray. My mom was all in on making education a priority for my brother and I. She didn't want us to repeat my parents' life of struggling to make ends meet, working 3 jobs to get by, choosing not to get a college degree, and getting married at 18 and 20. She wanted what we all want, for our children to have opportunities to do better than we did. They had chosen the tiny town of Monument, back then I think it was about 3,000 in population, as an ideal place to build a new life. Red Rock Ranch sits snug against the mountains when you pass by on your drive to I-25. It was undiscovered back then, a few homes, beautiful streams and forests, towering red rocks, and a community of people who looked out for each other and still do. Oh, and snow, lots and lots of snow. My first months of school there were frightening, exciting, and downright weird at times. I was the kid with the pink checkerboard Vans, the Valley Girl accent, and the freckled tan lines. My new friends at Lewis Palmer did not quite know what to do with me. And to be honest, I didn't quite know what to do with Monument at times either. I was used to living in the master plan community of Irvine, California, with tons of activities to choose from, franchise restaurants on every corner, and friends all over the block to ride my bikes with. In Colorado, I learned to keep things simple. I made friends with nature, and I spent a lot of time exploring with our two family pups, Daisy and Duffy. I missed my soccer team terribly, so my folks decided to bring AYSO, American Youth Soccer Organization, to Colorado, and they started the first youth soccer league in our state on a dirt field at the Baptist Church in Monument. Remember that, Julie? Yeah. Julie and I went to high school together and grew up together. Our family grew close to the community. My mom would become the town clerk. My dad would become the volunteer sheriff in Palmer Lake. My brother and I got involved in as many things as I could while working at the local Dairy Queen and striving to get a scholarship to go to college. To this day, my kids are way more impressed with my ability to make the curl on the top of the cone than anything I've done with Camp Bow Wow. Growing up, our family had a lot of love and encouragement, but little money for a 4-year degree. My dad, originally from Texas, encouraged me to check out the schools there. I fell in love with the beautiful campus of SMU, Southern Methodist University, and I earned a full-ride scholarship. The education gods were definitely smiling down on me. Being the small-town kid from Monument, I loaded up my '66 Mustang and headed to the big city of Dallas, where I drove right into a culture that did not fit me so well. I did not know what a Rolex was. I did not know what a Louis Vuitton was. And I did not understand why the kids thought BMWs were so cool compared to my beautiful old Mustang. After a year of trying to fit in, I moved on and later landed at CU Boulder, where I likely should have been all along. It fit me to a T, and I'm a diehard Buff ever since. Did you guys watch the football game last weekend? Go Buffs. Go Mel Tucker. He's doing a great job. Shortly after college, I landed a dream job in pharmaceutical sales and met my first husband, Brian, at the Tijuana Yacht Club in the basement of the Tivoli in downtown Denver. We were big dreamers. We were always writing up business ideas on the back of napkins at our favorite restaurants. And we also loved our two rescue dogs, Mick and Winnie, as well as traveling whenever we had the chance. But those two things didn't mix very well. The places you could board your pups back then were horrible, like old chain link with the concrete runs outside. That's unthinkable these days for our dogs, right? But then one of the first doggy daycares in the US opened up right next to my dad's business. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing since sliced bread. And we'd go over and hang out, watch the dogs play, and think this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. We pulled out the old restaurant napkin, got busy writing us a cool plan to create the best place for dogs on the planet, Camp Bow Wow. We turned the napkin scribble into a full-on business plan and started to look around for places we might launch it. But we were in our early 20s. Landlords thought we were nuts. Our families thought we were nuts. We had no money. We had student loans maxed out. Brian was just finishing his degree at CU Denver, and our savings account had 0. So there was that. That year, in May of 1994, Brian's 25th birthday was coming up, and my family planned a surprise birthday gift for my young daredevil husband. Our old family friend Cliff, a 30-year veteran of United Airlines, had started doing air shows in a vintage airplane and was eager to bring along friends for the ride. My folks picked up Brian that weekend and drove to Meadow Lake Airport in the Springs, while I stayed behind for our community garage sale. It was a beautiful Colorado sunny day, not a cloud in the sky, and Cliff and Brian did all the stunts and radioed my parents that they were going to do a flyby over them so they could take pictures. But that didn't happen. The plane crashed into the ground, and both of them were killed instantly. And obviously, my life changed dramatically, as did my family's and our friends, everyone who knew us and our family and Brian. As I lay in bed for days and weeks, very sad, very lost, my dogs, Mick and Winnie, would nudge me with their little wet noses or go woof and say, hey, you gotta go outside and play ball. Life hasn't stopped, even though it felt like it had. Our pharmaceutical sales team had been let go right before the crash. The healthcare markets were in turmoil back then. I think they still are, but this was in the early 90s. I wasn't working. I was in shock. I was numb. I was lost. My family and friends were devastated too. Brian was everyone's light, not just mine. I got a $1 million settlement from the plane's insurance company a few months later, but believe it or not, that money felt terrible. I didn't want money. I wanted Brian back. I wanted my life back. And I'd never had money. It felt so foreign to me. That sounds so weird, but it did, however, give me some space and time to heal, but also to blow the $1 million. I loaned money to family and friends. I hired a terrible money manager. I started a couple businesses that didn't work, including a catalog company because it was the sensible thing to do, not doggy daycare, right? But so much for doing the sensible thing, right? They said doggy daycare sounded absurd, right? You guys remember that? Well, my little brother knew better. Patrick, 7 years younger than me, knew I was struggling and trying to get back, get my mojo back. And he suggested we dust off the old business plan for Camp Bow Wow and see if we couldn't get it going. It didn't seem so absurd now that I've done everything that was sensible and that had not gone very well. I wanted to make $1 million back on my own merit, and I wanted to see our dream of Camp Bow Wow come true, but most of all, I wanted to create the happiest place on earth for dogs. So that's what we set out to do. We launched in an old Veterans of Foreign War hall just south of downtown Denver across from Herman's Hideaway. And it was terrifying, exhilarating, exciting, all rolled into one. But it worked. We had a drive up, drop off, and pick up on the side of the building that would let off a little bell because Broadway was pretty busy, and we'd run out and get the dogs. Our first big media coverage hit when the Rocky Mountain News came to do an article on us, and I told my brother, just wait to talk to him until I get there, because Pat's great with dogs, but not so much with reporters. So I walk into the room, and I hear my brother yelling across the room at the dogs, "Hey, no humping allowed!" I'm like, oh, did he just say that? And that was the title of our first press for Camp Bow Wow. No humping allowed at Camp Bow Wow. The next year, we opened a second camp. We started getting calls from folks all over the country asking how they too could open a camp for dogs. So I, of course, maxed out every credit card, took out home equity loan, and filed all the registrations, and off we went franchising Camp Bow Wow. And no, that wasn't the plan. A lot of people are like, oh, you had this grand plan. No. We thought we'd maybe have 3 or 4 units in Denver, and that would be the end of it. But a year or so later, after we'd been franchising for just a bit, magic happened when America Online featured us as the next great franchise with me with a little picture of a lab puppy. Now, who can resist a lab puppy? Everyone used AOL back then. Do you guys remember the dial-up? And you've got mail. Some of you remember, right? We got over a couple thousand franchise sales leads from that one day alone. It was wild. Over the next 2 years, with the help of my dad, who I brought out of retirement as our ringer, we sold over 100 franchises. I hired my family, my friends, my neighbors, the people walking down the street. I did everything you're not supposed to do. And we opened camps all over North America and one in Canada, so we were technically international. Thank goodness I had followed my passion and not what was sensible to do. Then in 2008, can you predict what happens? All heck breaks loose, and people lose their financing, there's no more franchise sales, it just dries up, and we have to hunker down and figure out if people are really gonna spend money on sending their dog to doggy daycare. But guess what? They did. People love their dogs, and we eked it out. We dug in, we fought back, we had to let go of a bunch of employees, some of whom were family and friends, and we still have Thanksgiving together, everything's fine. But we struggled, as the whole franchise industry struggled, because financing had dried up. Meanwhile, the heartbreak of losing love and losing buy-in was much tougher to come back from. I was losing faith that I'd ever find love again, but then enter my friend Becca, who introduced me to her cute neighbor, Jason. Jason has a funny joke he tells, but you're not allowed to tell that today. We got set up on a blind date at Centro. She said, it'll never be anything serious. You guys are just fun and playful, and you'll get along great. You'll go to some sports team games or something because you like that. Well, after our third date to the Rockies Red Sox World Series game, when we got kicked out of the club section for cheering too much, we knew it was meant to be. So we hit it off. 13 years after the crash, I found love again. And we got married in a Vegas drive-thru with Tori, my older daughter, in tow. And in the next few years, we worked on growing our family. Well, like a lot of things in my life, that didn't come easy either. I had several miscarriages and went through the roller coaster of in vitro treatments, but the comeback was big in the family department with Holly, who's now 10, in class with Saxton, and twins Jack and Jenna, who are now 7 and in 2nd grade. And yes, our house is absolute chaos, and no, I don't know how I do it all, because some days I do and some days I don't. But it's tons of fun, and we have a lot of love, and I can't, I look back and think, wow, what a life this has become. On the business front, even with the market crash, we managed to keep Camp Bow Wow afloat and on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing list. We grew it to $100 million in system sales and eventually sold in 2014 to VCA, the veterinary chain, for a lot of dog kibble. On the charity side, this is one of my favorite things that a lot of people don't know about Camp Bow Wow. We had a Bow Wow Buddies Foundation, which is our charity, and we were able to rehome over 10,000 dogs in the 10 years we ran the charity through fostering dogs at our camps around the country. It's one of my favorite parts of growing that business. So I lost my husband, I lost $1 million, I almost lost Camp Bow Wow in '08. But the grit that I was raised with, the small town community of Monument that had my back, and the street smarts I developed through lots of adversity got me through. But so did the education that served me well every step of the way. It was a constant through times when there weren't many constants. One thing about education, once you have it, nobody can take it away. Your life may twist and turn and follow unexpected paths, but education remains a bedrock. And I stand before you today, stronger, smarter, and better off today because of it. My story is the story of the American dream. I'm here today because I want to keep that American dream alive. For my kids, for your kids, for all our kids in America and around the globe. It's why I ran for office a few years ago and serve on the University of Colorado Board of Regents. We also get all-access football tickets, which is nice. It's why I have a charity called the Fight Back Foundation that mentors and gives grants to social entrepreneurs to help address Colorado's social issues like school safety, teen suicide, and drug addiction. It's also why I launched SHEFACTOR this summer, after working on it for a couple years, but we launched in May, a digital and live platform to help young women launch their lives when they're young and just starting out. My oldest daughter, Tori, prompted me to start SHEFACTOR when she came home from spring break her senior year from University of Oregon. No, she's not a buff, she defected and is a duck. And she declared dramatically, Tori's very dramatic at times, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And I'm like, what? Like, that's what college is for? You're supposed to figure that out and go get a job. Well, it's not that easy these days. I know it's complicated and there's lots of decisions to make when you're just starting out. So I decided to write the book, SHEFACTOR, as like a letter to my 20-year-old self about what I do differently. I have 3 daughters that I got to get through this, right? And a son. He-factor will come later. And then, of course, I don't do anything small, so I developed an app to go with the book that you download, a podcast that Tori's hosting now, a blog, a daily email, and now we're launching city squads around the country. We're launching the Denver City Squad tomorrow night. If anybody's interested, go to the Instagram. They've taught me well how to say that. Instagram is everything these days, right? There's a common thread in everything I'm doing. As a regent, with Fight Back, with SHEFACTOR, I want every child to have the same opportunity I did to unleash their own American dream. That's my passion now. When people talk about how hectic my life is and all the different things I'm doing, that's the common thread. Because I am so blessed to have lived the American dream, I want to protect it for all these little ones. My life has been one of overcoming challenges and adversity, of working hard and taking chances, of tough choices and lessons learned on the go, but at the end of the day, the difference was my education. School mattered for me. It mattered to my parents and my community. And obviously it matters to each of you, but that's not true for every American child. For the first time in the history of our country, children are born worse off than 2 generations ago. Perpetual progress has been at the heart of Western society for the past 150 years. The idea has been simple. Each generation should do better than their parents, right? Well, they're not right now when it comes to education. The U.S. is now ranked 23rd in reading, 25th in science, 40th in math. Most classrooms have remained the same. Sit down, don't talk, eyes front, wait for the bell, walk to the next class, repeat. While we've changed some aspects of education, the results we all work for and desire have not been achieved yet. Every one of us wants better for our students. It's why we're here today. We should commit that we as a country will not rest until every single child has equal access to the quality education that they deserve, just like these little ace superstars that you've heard today. When it comes to education, those closest to the problem are always better able to solve it. It's time to shift power over education back to parents who know their children best. That's what ACE does, and it works. Parents have the greatest stake in the outcome of their child's education. They should also have the power to make sure their child is getting the right education no matter what zip code they live in. I say let's double down on equal access to a quality education. That's how we solve a lot of society's problems today. Every American parent should have the right to choose how their child is educated. Access to money should not stand in the way of that choice. And a reminder, time is not on our side. Every child gets one shot at 3rd grade. We can't let that child's one shot be wasted. We've been entrusted with their futures, theirs and ours, and it all depends on what we do now. By being here now, by supporting ACE and these scholars, you are giving the gift of the American dream. By helping these ACE scholars learn to build their character, to believe in themselves, it will not only brighten their future, not just their children's future, but it will brighten the whole world. My life is just one example of what the ripple effects of education can bring. The stories you've heard today are more examples of what a unique education can do for them individually, for their families, for their communities, for society. It's the American dream, and it's time to fight to keep it alive. It's time to put your hand up. Finally, in the words of the great Mr. Rogers, anyone who does anything to help a child is a hero to me. Thank you, ACE, for your commitment to our children. Thank you to all of you for supporting ACE and their mission. You are all my heroes. Thanks.